There are some nights that change a person forever. Not because something great happened, but because something small did. Something so quiet and so human that the whole world shifts without making a sound. This is one of those nights. It begins at 30,000 feet, somewhere over the dark belly of the Atlantic Ocean, on a red-eye flight that nobody wants to be on. The cabin lights are dimmed low. Most passengers are sleeping or pretending to. Their necks are bent at awkward angles, their blankets twisted around them like pale cocoons. The turbulence comes in slow, rolling waves that rattle the overhead bins. But none of that is the story. The story is Amara. She is 26 years old, a black nanny from Lagos by way of London, traveling with a toddler named Zoe who belongs to the wealthy family she works for. She is tired the way only young women who carry too much are tired. Bone deep, soul tired, but her eyes are always open. She has always been the kind of person who notices things. And tonight, in the front section of the plane, half hidden behind the blue curtain that separates first class from the rest of the world, she notices a man who is trying very hard not to fall apart. His name, she will learn later, is Daniel. That is the name he gives her, at least. He is Korean, somewhere in his early 30s, dressed in a charcoal suit so perfectly fitted it looks sewn onto his body that morning. His jaw is sharp. His hands rest on the armrest like two sleeping weapons. But his shoulders are telling a different story. They're pulled inward, caving just slightly, the way a strong building looks right before the foundation cracks. His eyes are red. Not pink red from tiredness. Dark red, the kind that comes after a long, private war with tears. And yet he is perfectly still. He is crying the way men who have never been allowed to cry do, silently, without movement, as if grief is leaking from him against his will, and he is furious at every drop. Around him, flight attendants move through the aisle and look right past him. A businessman across the row glances over, sees the redness, and looks quickly away. 3 other passengers notice and do the same. The polite thing, the safe thing, the human thing. They all choose the safe thing. Amara watches all of this from her seat, Zoe sleeping warm against her chest. She watches the man the whole cabin has agreed to ignore, and she makes a different choice. She does not think about it for long. She shifts Zoe carefully into the seat beside her, tucks the small blanket around the child's sleeping body, and walks forward. She passes through the blue curtain like she belongs there. She does not belong there. Her ticket is economy. But Amara has never let a curtain decide what kind of person she is. She reaches his row and stops. Up close, he is even more controlled than he looked from a distance. His face is dry now, wiped clean. His jaw is set. He looks at her the way men, like him, always look at unexpected things, like she's a threat to be carefully assessed. His eyes sweep over her, quick and sharp, counting details. She feels it like a scan. She does not flinch. Instead, she holds out a small packet of tissues, the kind with little flowers on the wrapping that she always carries, because Zoe is a messy eater. "You don't have to cry alone," she says. Her voice is soft. Not a question, not an invitation to explain himself. Simply the truth, offered without condition. He stares at her, a long, hard stare. Then he looks at the tissue. Something moves behind his eyes, not gratitude, not yet. Something more painful than that. Something like recognition, like a man seeing a word he had forgotten existed, written plainly in a language he used to speak. He does not take the tissue immediately. He sits with the offer the way a person who has not eaten in days sits with a plate of food, almost afraid to believe it is real. Then, slowly, he reaches out and takes it. "My name is Daniel," he says. His voice is low and even like water that is very deep. She tells him her name, Amara. He nods once. He does not ask why she crossed the curtain or what she wants. In his world, kindness without a motive simply does not exist. So he watches her. She notices his eyes move, just briefly, to the aisle behind her, then to the emergency exits, then to 2 men sitting in economy, 2 rows apart, who have not spoken to each other, but whose eyes keep moving in the same direction. His direction. She notices him noticing those men. He notices her noticing him. Something passes between them in that silence. Not words, but understanding, the strange electric kind that happens between two people who are both, in their own way, very good at reading a room. Then from behind them, a small voice cuts through everything. Zoe is awake, and Zoe is not happy. Her cry fills the cabin, high and clear and impossible to ignore. Amara turns to go to her. Daniel's phone, face down on the armrest, vibrates once. He does not look at it, but his jaw tightens. Amara moves quickly. She tries everything. The pacifier, the soft giraffe toy, the quiet song she hums when nothing else works. Nothing works. Zoe's cry is the kind that fills a whole cabin, and other passengers stir and sigh. Amara feels the familiar heat of being watched, of being a dark-skinned woman in a space that has already decided she does not quite belong. She is losing the battle when she hears movement beside her. Daniel has followed her back through the curtain. He crouches beside the seat without a word, his expensive suit folding at the knees, his face at Zoe's level. He simply extends one finger toward the child the way you extend a hand toward a frightened animal, patiently, without rushing. Zoe looks at the finger. She hiccups once. Then she reaches out her small, chubby hand and wraps it around his single finger. She stops crying. Just like that. The whole cabin exhales. Daniel goes very still. He stares at the child's hand around his finger, and something passes across his face, something raw and young and devastated, as if a door inside him has been opened that he forgot was there. His lips move. Amara leans closer. He is whispering in Korean. Soft, barely audible words. I am sorry, he says. I'm so sorry. She watches him. Who are you apologizing to? She asks. He does not answer. He straightens up carefully, so that Zoe's hand releases his finger without waking her. He looks at Amara with those flat, assessing eyes, and she can see him deciding how much to give and how much to keep. This is a man built entirely of walls. Beautiful, expensive, perfectly maintained walls. Why would you help a stranger? He asks. The question is not rude. It is genuinely curious, confused, almost the way a person is confused by something that does not fit their map of the world. She thinks for a moment. She could say many things. She chooses the true thing. Because no one helped me once, she says. And I remember what that felt like. He is quiet for a long time after that. Then his phone vibrates again. He does not look at it, but she sees his jaw tighten. She glances back toward economy, toward the two men who have not spoken to each other, but whose eyes never stop moving. One of them is looking down at his phone now. She looks back at Daniel. He is looking at her. You notice things, he says. His voice is flat. It is not quite a compliment. It sounds more like a warning. Outside the oval window, the sky has begun its slow turn from black to deep, uncertain blue. Somewhere below, the continent they are flying toward is already awake. The turbulence returns worse than before. The plane lurches sharply sideways, then drops, that horrible, stomach-lifting drop that makes every passenger's breath catch at once. Overhead, bins rattle. A cup spills across an armrest. Someone in the back screams, and then immediately goes quiet, embarrassed by their own fear. Zoe clutches her giraffe and mercifully stays asleep. Amara grabs the armrest, and Daniel's hand covers hers. It is instinct, she can tell, because he looks almost surprised by his own movement. His hand is large and very cool against her skin. For a moment, in the shaking dark of the plane, they are just two people holding on. The turbulence settles into a rough, unsteady hum. He does not remove his hand immediately. In the dimness, his face is different. The wall is still there, but through the cracks, she can see something exhausted and human looking back at her. He speaks very quietly. If something happens when we land, do not trust anyone who meets us at the gate. She stares at him. He is completely serious. His thumb moves once, slowly, across the back of her hand before he pulls it away. She looks toward economy class. The two men who are sitting down are now standing. The seatbelt sign is on. The plane has not yet begun its descent, but they're standing, and their eyes are already at the front of the plane. The plane lands hard, a thud and a screech that presses everyone into their seats. When the wheels touch down and the engines begin their long reverse roar, Amara feels the tension in the cabin shift, subtle, like a change in the air before rain. Passengers stir, pulling bags from overhead bins, switching phones off airplane mode. But the two men from economy are already moving forward before anyone has unbuttoned their seatbelts. They move with a purpose that has nothing to do with catching a connecting flight. Daniel sees them coming. Amara watches his transformation, and it is terrifying. Not because it is violent, not yet, but because it is so complete. One moment, he is the man with cracks in his walls. The next moment, that man is simply gone, packed away somewhere deep, replaced by something cold and absolutely certain. He steps into the aisle. He does not look afraid. He looks like the thing that afraid people are afraid of. "Stay behind me," he says to Amara. His voice does not raise. It does not need to. One of the men reaches inside his coat. That is the last decision that man makes freely. Daniel moves first. 2 precise movements. The crack of a wrist. A body meeting the linoleum floor. The second man crumples against the seats. For seconds. Total silence. Then the cabin erupts. Zoe wakes and cries. Amara scoops her up without thinking, her heart slamming, her body running on a fear so pure it feels almost like calm. Daniel is already beside her, his grip on her arm firm and exact, the grip of someone who knows precisely how much force to use. He pulls them toward the front of the plane, through the first-class galley, and out through a restricted door only crew are supposed to use. Down a narrow service corridor, through a door marked with yellow caution tape, and then out into the cold, underground air of a private airport exit where a black SUV is already running. The driver does not look back. Airport security shouts echo somewhere behind them, distant and confused. Daniel opens the rear door. She hesitates. "They saw you help me," he says. "You're already involved." A single gunshot echoes somewhere in the terminal behind them. She gets in. The SUV pulls smoothly into the pre-dawn city. She looks through the rear window as the garage doors begin to close behind them. On the street outside, just visible through the narrowing gap, stand a man she does not recognize. He is watching the SUV. His arms are at his sides. His face is calm, and he is smiling, slowly, deliberately, the way a person smiles when things are going exactly as they planned. The SUV moves through the city like a shadow. No sirens follow. The driver navigates the pre-dawn streets with the ease of someone who has done this many times before. Zoe has fallen back into exhausted sleep across Amara's lap. Amara is not sleeping. She watches the city blur past the dark glass and tries to put language to what her body already knows, that her life has divided cleanly into a before and an after, and the line between them is the moment she walked through a curtain on a plane. Daniel sits beside her, his jacket open. In the dim orange glow of passing streetlights, she can see he is breathing very carefully. Controlled breathing. The kind a person practices until it becomes armor. "Who are you?" she asks. Not angrily, not in fear, just honestly, the way someone who deserves the truth asks for it. He does not answer immediately. He looks at Zoe sleeping on her lap. Something moves in his face. The SUV descends into a private underground garage. The door seal behind them with a sound like a vault closing. A penthouse elevator waits ahead, its doors already open. She looks back through the rear window. On the street outside the closing garage doors, just barely visible, the smiling man is still there, still watching. Amara turns forward. She steps into the elevator. Whatever comes next, she will face it with her eyes open. The penthouse is silent and enormous and cold the way expensive places sometimes are, as though warmth costs extra and someone forgot to pay for it. The floors are pale stone. The windows are floor to ceiling, the whole city spread below like a map of a world she no longer belongs to. There's almost no softness anywhere, no blankets left on the sofa, no half-read books, no coffee rings on the table. This is not a home. It is a place where someone exists without living. Amara lays Zoe on a long cream sofa, tucks the giraffe under her arm, and turns on the television because she needs something ordinary in this very unordinary night. The news is already running. She sees his face before she fully understands the headline scrolling beneath it. Korean crime syndicate leader Min Jae missing after internal power struggle. The photograph is him, younger, sharper, standing outside a glass tower in Seoul with the look of a man who owns everything he looks at. She turns. Daniel, Min Jae, is standing in the kitchen doorway, watching her watch the screen. He does not try to explain or deny. He lets her look at the photograph and then at him and find the match herself. They think I am dead, he says finally. His voice is very quiet. A long pause. That is why I was crying.
That's the end of part 1. Like, comment your thoughts, and share for part 2.